No, it was so popular. All the girls.
Yeah, take your stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I've been up with them.
So yeah, because we were talking about that this past Sunday. I turned that all the way down and I was like, wow, that's what it was. So,
Then I'll just give you notes.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Speak it.
I was just waiting for him to hear you.
All right, we are gonna go ahead and get started, even though I know we're probably gonna have more people trickle in, but we have got a lot to talk about. Hey, speak of the devil, there they are, trickling in. All right, we are going to continue our study of Genesis. A couple things that I want to let you guys know about, just some housekeeping things. If you are not aware or have not listened to the news recently, we are going to get hit with either snowmageddon or 3 flakes. I don't know, but just keep an eye on the weather. We might have to change some things, either about our worship schedule on Sunday, or maybe even cancel entirely. But never fear, because just this morning we recorded an entire worship service just for you guys. If we do end up canceling on Sunday morning, never fear. You can go ahead and jump onto YouTube, and we will be there waiting for you. We're actually going to even continue our series on spiritual disciplines with study. We're going to the spiritual discipline of study. Yes.
Can you still post it even though there's worship?
Yeah, we'll post it. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I don't know. I don't do that. Yeah. I just what? I don't think that's Amy either. I think it happens by magic.
We have the technology.
Right. Yeah. But in any case, so just to give you a warning about that, but also to tell you that don't fear, but please tune in, and we can continue our series on that. Speaking of continuing our series, we are going to be continuing in Genesis. Once again, we are talking about looking at Genesis through a new lens. We are used to looking at the stories and the characters of Genesis through a very Western lens. And a Western lens almost always asks, how? How is that happening? How did they do that? Whereas the Eastern lens is very, very much more concerned with why. Why did that happen? Why are they doing that? So we're trying to look at that story through we're trying to look at this story through that lens more. We are going to be in Genesis chapter 4, and we are going to be looking at the story of Cain and Abel. Once again, we are looking at a very, very well-known story. Even those not of the faith will know who Cain and Abel is. But I don't want that to be a hindrance on how we study this passage. Come at it with a blank slate. Try to look at it as someone who might not have a faith background, or better yet, just someone who is hearing the story for the first time. So I want you to be bubbling that in your head while we talk a little bit. I did want to get some information from you guys. What are you most jealous of in other people? If you have to say, what are you most jealous of in other people? Okay, their skills. Okay, yes, yeah, all right. I really wish they know this, but I took piano for like what, four years? At least 4 years. And I'm always so mad that I quit because anytime I see someone just wailing on the piano, I'm like, I'm so jealous. I wish I could play the piano. What else? What else are you? That was said second in the last class too.
I'm 6 foot, so it's kind of sad that I'm 6 foot.
What? I know, yeah, poor you. You're not 6 foot. That's so sad for you. All right. So sometimes physique. Okay. We are jealous of people's physique. All right. What else are we jealous of in other people?
When they're already at the place in life that I'm aiming for.
Okay, so maybe they are know, the president of the company, and we want to be president of the company. Okay, yeah, sure. All right.
Agility.
What?
Agility.
Yes, yeah, okay, you're very, very jealous of my cat-like reflexes. What? Possessions, okay, yes, yeah, that's actually the one thing that like wasn't said. I know everybody was thinking of it, but they didn't say it. Yes, yeah, man, I wish I had his car. Man, I wish I had her house. Yeah.
My neighbor's ox.
What?
My neighbor's ox.
Your neighbor's ox. Yes, I often look at my neighbor's ox and think, if there were 10 commandments, that would thing would be in my backyard. Yeah. Ideas. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Or maybe just the way someone thinks. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, ideas. Like I wish I had invented Facebook. I guess. Yeah. That would have been cool. All right. Anything else that you're jealous of?
People's health.
Okay, yes, yeah. Some people, especially whenever you have ailing health, you see someone else, and like, oh man, I wish I could be more healthy. Okay, yeah. Attention. Okay, yes, yeah. Some people are jealous of other people's attention. Okay, yes, yeah. I often do that. That's why I gain as much as I can. Anything else? Knowledge. Okay, yeah. I wish I knew as much as they did. Okay. This is a fun one. What is the worst gift you have ever gotten? I know that you probably know what the best gift you've ever gotten is, but what is the worst gift you've ever gotten? Yeah.
Cowboyopoly.
Cowboyopoly? It's
Yeah.
a great game. You're crazy. Okay.
My mom was forcing me to take a table home, like a bedside table that could collapse and tilt. And
Yeah.
And I told her I didn't want it, didn't need it. And finally, by the end of the weekend, she made me take it home. And when I put it in the car, she goes, "Oh, that's your birthday."
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So a bedside table we don't need. Happy birthday. Yeah. I picked it up at a garage sale. Yeah.
In the mail, my mom's got this random book that was like, first of all, she sent this huge letter with it, and she wanted me and my sisters to read it because she thought it would be really good for our faith. But the problem is that I wasn't particularly interested in the story. I was reading it and was like,
Yeah.
this is written poorly.
Sure. Yeah.
And second, the story was entirely age inappropriate for my sisters. And it was like,
So
I'm not gonna have them read this because that's weird.
Okay, yeah. So inappropriate, like not interested gifts. Okay, yeah. What else? What's the worst gift you've ever gotten? Yeah.
Getting disciplined for something you did.
Okay, they called that a gift.
Well, it's asking from the Lord.
Oh,
You have to
okay.
take
Oh,
it.
sure. Yes, yeah. Happy birthday. Okay. All right. Love it. Okay.
a re-gift.
Someone in the last class said for Valentine's Day they got a dishwasher. Oh, I know how much you love doing dishes. Yeah, it's kind of like getting your wife like a treadmill or something. Like, ooh, boy, yeah, that's not a good message.
I'll throw one out there. It's one my daughter actually got from my mother.
Oh, okay.
It was the bow on a Christmas present. I want you to imagine a bunny rabbit. I think a stuffed one, about this big, but it was dressed in black leather and had a black cape and had a black chain for like you could use it as a giant necklace kind of thing. I don't know why my mom thought that was an excellent.
Yeah,
My family has turned it into a game where we hide Namek in each other's cars and in the shower and just trying to jump scare everybody.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Hideous present.
Yeah. Okay, so hideous presents. All right, yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
One birthday, I received nothing but socks.
Yeah. See, that's lame. Yeah.
And it kind of was my Christmas gift too, because my birthday's like 2 weeks away from Christmas.
Wow. So socks. Yeah.
I disagree with that.
Yowza. Okay.
I was 14.
Does anyone have a fun story of how they got their name? Like, are you named after anybody? Yeah.
Well, not different, but my parents tried for about 10 years to have a child. They couldn't, so they started adopting.
So both my sisters are from China, and but doctors told they couldn't have kids and everything, but eventually they found out that they're pregnant. My mom had a dream about it, and this was a child. She prayed to have a kid for years and years. And so whenever they found out they were pregnant, they decided to make this imagine.
Okay.
Repeat that.
Nice. Yeah, that's fun. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So for those who don't know at all, I come from 5 generations of just dudes. Okay, literally for about 50 years until me, all of the women in the Parker family married in. And so I was supposed to be a boy. Everybody thought I was going to be a boy. And then when my mom found out that I was a girl, the name that she had picked was technically like gender neutral. We could have used it. She's like, no, if I'm having a girl, she's having this girly name.
Okay.
So she changed it.
So what was the gender neutral name?
I was supposed to be a Dakota.
Ooh, yeah, that's a no fit. Yeah, I'm glad you're being it. Yes, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Fun stories of how they got their name?
I was supposed to be a girl.
You were supposed to be a girl, and they kept the name Tony anyway. Like, yeah. Yeah, kind of, yeah. Yeah. My first name is actually my mom's maiden name, which means that whenever I meet my cousins from her side of the family, their names are like Madeline Garrett, and then my name is like Garrett Marshall. So it makes it very confusing at the end of the reunion. But okay, anyone else? No cool name?
My parents heard my name on a TV show and they liked it.
Yeah, okay, sweet. All right, yeah. That's kind of how we named our kids. Like, ooh, that sounds fun. Let's name them that. Yeah, we don't have real cool stories or nothing. All right. Well, now that we've got all that information, if you can believe it, that all is going to come back into play later as we look through our story this evening. We are going to once again be in Genesis chapter 4, so if you have your Bibles or your phones, I would highly encourage you to follow along. It's not as big of a chunk of text as we're used to, but it is still a good chunk, so it would be great if you could follow along. For those that have been here all these weeks, what are the 3 questions we want to ask of the text in an Eastern lens?
So
Weird,
Repetitive.
repetitive, and what doesn't make sense. Oh, I'm so proud of you guys. All right, so what is so that's what I want you guys to focus on as we read through the passage. What is weird, what doesn't make sense, and what repeats itself. Now Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord. And again she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a worker of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portion. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell. The Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry, and why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. Cain spoke to Abel his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, Where is your brother Abel? He said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? And the Lord said, What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground, and now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest any who find him should attack him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. All right, what's weird? And what doesn't make sense? And what repeats itself?
Weird. We have no idea the conversation.
Wow. Okay. Yes. All right. So that is one that was not caught last, and now it's the very first one. Okay. So we have a blank space where a conversation should be. All it says was they went out to the field and talked, but no idea what they said. All right. What else?
It's almost phrased like it was Cain's idea to go and do the sacrifice. So when he goes and he does it, it's his idea and he does it first, and then Abel comes along, he does it, but he does it better.
Right, so there might be some like, hey, that's unfair. Like I was the trial and error guy, and you just kind of copied off of me. Okay, yeah. So it looks like it's Cain. Cain definitely is put first in the order, which is weird. Okay, yeah.
Well, that's why I was thinking just the fact that why was his offering no good?
Okay, yes, yeah. So it doesn't. God never really states why the offering displeased God. It never really states that. So we're left wondering why. Okay, what else?
Abel's blood cried out from the
Yeah, that's weird imagery, isn't it? What does that mean? Yes, yeah, okay, love it. Yeah, that's a very striking verse. Okay, what else?
We're told, well, the story that we have so far is there's 2 people in the world. And then all of a sudden Cain's like, other people in the world are going to kill me. Where do all these people come from?
Yes, yeah, okay, so what's the deal with all these people? Who is he afraid is going to kill him? Honestly, this is probably more humorous than accurate, but I've always thought that if I killed my brother, the first person I'd be worried about would be my
Mother.
mom. Yeah, so maybe it's Eve that he's afraid would kill him, but I doubt it. It seems like there's other people. All right. What other questions? Yeah.
I noticed a repetition between this and actually last time. The first thing God says when he gets there is he says, "Where are you?" He
Yeah.
asks,
Where is your brother?
Where is your brother? Where
Uh-huh.
he comes down and he asks.
Yes, yeah, okay, so two things there. One is we have the same problem that we had in the garden. Why does an omnipotent God need to ask where somebody is?
I wouldn't say it was a problem. I was just saying repetition.
Yes, yeah, and well, that was a problem last week. We're going to bring it over here. But you're exactly right. It also repeats itself, almost like a mirror. Gee, I wonder what we might be looking for. Okay, what else? What other problems?
What's the mark?
Okay, what is the mark? Okay, yeah, that was another thing that was brought up in the early bird. All right. So what's the mark? Is it a weird birthmark? Is it a horn? What are we talking about here? Okay, what else?
Also, if you're cursing Cain to this miserable life, why make ensure that if his death is bad, the person who killed them is going to worse?
Okay, yeah. So there seems to be a little bit weird. Like it seems like a mercy, but it also seems like I don't want you to get off too easy. You know, like I don't want you to die right after this. I want you to really have to suffer. Okay, love it.
It's kind of, I mean, reading it literally, Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in a land of Nod, east of Eden. So he went to a place that was already established.
Yes, yeah. So once again, we're kind of thinking about who are these people? Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up east. Okay, yes, yeah. So east. What else? What really, really doesn't make sense about this story?
It was kind of like the fact that, like, right at the very beginning, that Eve just ran up and goes, I have produced a man.
Yes, yeah. So, and who's missing from that equation? Yeah, okay, yeah. So that's weird. All right, yeah. Why are they sacrificing?
They hadn't been commanded to.
Nope.
Noah,
Nope. They haven't been commanded to.
were they just trying to please God?
I don't know. But yeah,
What's the Hebrew?
right. Yeah. Okay. So one of the questions that I have is, first of all, what prompted the sacrifice? They have not been commanded to, as far as we know in the narrative, and so we can safely assume that they have not been commanded to. But something prompts them to sacrifice. Second, how would they know what to sacrifice? So much so that one is pleasing and the other one is not. Weird, right? The other question is a similar question that we had last week, and a Jewish person is always going to ask, what kind of God are we dealing with? And remember last week we talked about what kind of God puts a tree in the middle of the garden to tempt his creation. Remember, we talked about what would happen if I put a plate of cookies out in the living room and I said, hey, Finn, don't touch those cookies. I'll be back in an hour. Rate me as a father. Pretty poor. Yeah?
God can't tempt us.
Okay, yes, yeah, and that's an excellent point. Right now, though, we're looking at it from a very Hebrew perspective. Yeah, and so that's old Jamie Poo over there, but not you, but James who wrote that. So right now we're at the beginning of the story, so that's not super clear cut. But rate me as a father. My 2 children come to me, and they have colored me pictures. And I take Lincoln's, my youngest, and say, wow, Lincoln, this is the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. It's in the lines and everything. You know what? This is what it's going right here on the fridge. Good job, Lincoln. And Finn hands me his and is like, whew, better luck next time, Finn. Rate me as a father. Rough. Yeah, okay, right. You gotta be like, oh, good try, Finn. You know, it's like, I like how you didn't get in the lines at all. You know, you gotta make something up. This is a weird God that we're dealing with. Again, it seems on the surface that this God is not a good father to his children. That's another question that we need to wrestle with and we need to work through. We're going to go through it, and if you can believe it, all of our questions and more are going to be answered as we walk through the text. The first thing I want to make us know, so these are the problems, and I think they encompass a lot of what we talked about, like really specific ones. How did Cain and Abel know to sacrifice to God? How would they be expected to know what to sacrifice? Why does God ask Cain why he is downcast? That's a question that we missed. Why does God ask Cain why he's angry? Because on the surface, this looks like the dumbest question anyone's ever asked ever. If I crumple up Finn's picture that he gave me and throw it in the trash, and then he starts crying, and I say, why are you crying? We're going to say I'm mocking him. Like, it's almost like I'm being mean, all right? Yeah.
Is sacrifice and offering the same?
I would say so, just because they are giving of what they have, and so it would be a sacrifice. It's a lot of people are going to look at this as like a precursor to some of the Levitical sacrifices. I wouldn't put too much of a connection between these two things, but yeah, I think offering and sacrifice.
The reason because the translation I've got says offering,
Says
sacrifice.
okay.
So that's why I'm asking.
Yes, yeah, and I think it would be just a translation issue, because a lot of, I think my translation says sacrifice. Oh no, mine says offering. But I think in Hebrews, whenever it talks about it, it says sacrifice. So, interesting. Anyway, and the fourth question that is going to get to the heart of what we're talking about is, why does God not like Cain's sacrifice? All right, so we need to dig into some stuff. Buckle up. So we talked about names before, and I know I've kind of talked about this topic before in some of my sermons, but names in Hebrew mean something different than they mean in our Western culture. Kind of like we were talking about when we talked about how you get your name. A lot of times it's like, well, it sounded good, or I'm named after my great Aunt Lucy, or whatever. In Hebrew, it is very, very different. In Hebrew, your name was supposed to define who you were. Your name was kind of like a stamp of who you were going to be. The most famous one is probably Jacob. Okay, what does his name mean?
Grab by the heel.
Heel holder.
Heel.
Yeah, heel holder. Yeah, dude, right. No, just kidding. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, heel holder, usurper, deceiver. Okay, and many times in Hebrew names, You can live them out in a positive light and a negative light. Once again, Jacob, he is heel holder. That could mean deceiver, or it could mean ambitious. He chose to, for the majority of his life, live it out in a negative light. But you can also live it out in a positive light. Here we have Cain, or Cain, and he is named this because of his mother. His mother says, I have acquired a man with the help of God. Some of your translations are going to say, I have gotten, or something else. But the closest to the Hebrew we can get is acquired. Whenever I say the word acquired, what does that usually mean? I acquired something.
Something you've worked for.
Okay, so something you've worked for, maybe.
Come into possession.
Come into possession of, okay, yes, yeah.
Business.
Okay, business, yes, I've acquired a company. Okay, yeah. What's interesting is that the early bird, and I think this is the direction that I think I would go with it, is they used acquired in terms of like a gift. Like, I have acquired a gift, or I have acquired an inheritance. What have you done for an inheritance? Yeah, I survived. Yeah, okay. So what Eve is trying to get at is that, I acquired a man through the help of God, meaning God did a lot of the work, and I acquired it through God's of giving to me, but I possess it. Okay, acquiring is all about possession. Cain's name literally means possessor. Okay, and what do we know about Cain's profession?
He worked the brain.
He worked the ground. Okay. So he has an intimate relationship with the ground. And if he is a possessor, that's what defines him. How does he view the ground that he works?
That's my dirt.
It's mine. Yeah, it's my dirt. This is mine. Okay? He is the archetype of a possessor, a owner. But he's also an acquirer, which means he also realizes that he doesn't get what he has without someone else. Okay? So that's and you can see how that can be used positively or negatively. I can't get what I have without someone else. I'm an acquirer. Okay? While as Abel is this probably, hopefully, familiar word of Hevel, or Hevel. This is the word in Ecclesiastes that means, you remember? Breath, but how do our Bibles translate it incorrectly? Meaningless vanity. All right? So what it really comes down to is vapor or breath. And what do we know about his profession?
Keeper of the sheep.
He tended sheep. Okay, so what is my relationship to the ground if I tend sheep?
I walk across it.
I move along it. Okay, yeah. I don't own it because I need a lot for my herd. So I move across it. The two ideas that are going to come into conflict here between Cain and Abel is one of possessor and one of steward. What's the difference between a possessor and a steward?
Owning something versus doing something.
Okay, so it's sometimes, it's owner versus doing something with it. But if I'm a steward of something, what is my relationship to the thing?
You're a caretaker.
I'm a caretaker, meaning it's not mine. It's not mine. I am a steward of it. I'm responsible for it, but it's not mine. Possessor, that's mine. Okay? So these two ideas are going to come into conflict. Abel is the perfect example of breath, of vapor. Does breath and vapor stay in one place? No, it is transient. It moves along. It is a steward of what has been given. Whereas Cain is a possessor, an owner. He stays planted. This is mine. All right? So these two ideas are going to come into conflict here. And what is really interesting about the way the Hebrew reads here is that God looks at the person first before the offering or the sacrifice. God looked to Abel first, then his offering. Then he looked away from Cain, and then his gift. What might this imply about what was important here?
First fruit.
What?
Sorry, go ahead. Their disposition, their character, their like, what was their motivation behind?
Okay, so their disposition about the sacrifice. Okay, this is the worst part about the Western looking at this culture and or looking at this passage. And I gotta be honest with you, I did not think I would get as much pushback as I did in the early bird about this. Is the sacrifice about the stuff? Is the no? The sacrifice is not about the stuff. If Cain had brought the exact same lamb that Abel did, would his sacrifice have been acceptable? No. God looks to the person first, then the offering. It is not about the stuff that they offered. It is about the disposition. Now, you can tell their disposition by what they offered, but it is not about the offering. If Cain had given the Lord the best pumpkin he ever grew, it still would not have been pleasing to the Lord. It is all about the disposition. That is why Paul, when he talks about our giving, talks about the heart. It's not about what you give. It's about your disposition. How are you giving? With a name like Possessor, what do you think the mindset of Cain was when he was giving his offering?
What am I getting for this?
Oh, man. Yes. What am I getting for this? All right, what else? What? Oh, I have to do this. Okay, yes. Yeah, what else?
I have to give this good enough.
Okay, yeah, there's a line and I need to meet it to
Satisfy whatever
get what
internal.
I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What else?
he may be looking at it like as a business. Chapter 3 is punishment.
Yep. Uh-huh.
You're gonna be sweating. If I give you back because you have helped me,
Yeah.
maybe it goes easier on me. The process is a little bit easier.
So transaction language, okay? I'm looking for one thing. This is all exactly what I want to hear.
Well,
I think we're just missing one first element first.
Faith.
Faith and trust absolutely play a part in it. How does Cain view his offering? What is he giving?
He's giving his stuff.
Yes!
Better than his brother.
Yes!
He
I'm a possessor. I'm giving you my stuff. How does Abel see his? I'm giving you your stuff. So, as a possessor, you guys absolutely nailed it on the head. Cain brought from the ground as a boss paying a tax. Abel brought the choice portions as a servant returning a gift. Cain thought, I am going to give something to you, so you will give something back to me. As a farmer trying to please a god, what was he probably trying to get?
rain.
Rain! Yeah, rain for his crops. Where's the only place that can come from? God. God is the sole provider of rain. Why? What prompts Cain's sacrifice? Want. Yeah, greed is what prompts the sacrifice. Instead of a sacrifice brought about by the gratitude of a benevolent God, instead we see a payoff, a bribe. This is the exact thing in this culture that you would expect of a God. I need to bribe him to do what I want. At the heart of this story is a clash between the God that we expect versus the God that he is. And he's going to say, I'm not that kind of God. In fact, he's even going to go one step further. What is the dumbest question that God asks in this whole story? Why are you angry? We know, even my 4-year-old could probably guess why Cain is angry. And yet God still asks why. And my question to you is, why? Why would God ask that question?
To get him to say it out loud and get it from him.
Okay, so part of it is, I know you did something wrong. You know you did something wrong. I want you to own it and confess it. Okay? I want to see what you feel, how you feel about this. Yeah, okay. I think that's true. What else? What's the implication with God's question? Why are you angry?
But he had no reason.
He had no reason to be angry. Our God goes one step further than saying, I don't want to be bribed. Our God goes one step further and says, Cain, you messed up. And that's okay. Why are you angry? Try again tomorrow. As a possessor, Cain views God's honor and love as a scarce resource that he has to own. He looks at it as there's only so much love that God can share. And I lost some. So now, as a possessor, how does Cain view Abel? What?
As in the way.
An obstacle. You are an obstacle to me gaining love. And if you are out of the way, there's no other direction the love can go but to the big dog. Behind this is not just jealousy, although that's a huge part of it. It is also a huge insecurity. Cain is afraid that he's going to lose everything because he didn't give the right sacrifice. God is trying to say, you're not going to lose everything. Why are you freaking out about this? Try again. But then what does he go on to say? What's his next advice to Cain?
If you don't chill out, it's gonna bite you.
There is sin crouching at your door. Okay? Keep that in mind as we go, as we continue through our study. And think about what crouches at your door. There was a question about what in the world was said in the field. And anytime you get a blank space where you feel like you should have more information, that is on purpose. The Hebrew text is trying to say there is a void here. And I want you to try and fill it about what might have been said. What communication broke down that ended in murder? It's kind of like when Joseph goes into the pit. He falls into the pit. We have no idea how long he was there, what he was thinking while he was in the pit, but he comes out a changed person. It's up to us to fill that void with what he was thinking down there. The same thing is true here. It's up to us to fill the void of what Cain might have tried to communicate with Abel. But one lesson we can learn is that when communication with God fails, communication with our brother inevitably collapses as well. The first person Cain turns away from is God. In fact, God gives him a warning, and Cain says, "You're right, nothing." He turns away. There was a gap in communication between him and God, and so there was obviously going to be a gap in communication between him and his brother. What crouches at your door?
A predator.
Yeah. Or a beast. What makes man different from beast again?
Yes.
You were- Yeah, there you go. All right, don't bring that Western stuff in here. I'm just kidding. Yes. Okay, we're made in God's image, which gives us the ability to what? Yes. To control our desires. To say when we have had enough. Once again, as we analyze this story, it is the same temptation that Cain is facing that his parents faced. Am I going to trust God that there is enough? Or I'm going to act on my own desires? Cain's desire was for love and for prosperity. He saw Abel being in the way of that, and he gave in to desire. And it ended up being violence. Interestingly enough, the word sin is never actually used in the Garden of Eden story, which I think we would think is weird, because the time that sin entered the world, the word sin is actually not used. The first time it is used is right here. It appears as a user manual for Cain's internal struggle. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. Sin also has a desire, and you must rule over it. What was the first thing that humans were told they got to rule over? The beast. We learn here that sin is just like a beast. Its desire is to rule over us, but we have been charged to rule over it. The Hebrew term ravetz describes a predator waiting at the threshold. It is misdirected energy waiting for an aim. Sin is not an external demon. It is a powerful beast of our own desires that has not yet been domesticated. I want to get across something that I was remiss not to really hammer home last week. Desires in of themselves are not bad. In fact, Rabbi Foreman teaches that our drives, like power, sex, and hunger, are the energy of life. Without that, there is no creation. If you don't have a sex drive, how long is the human race going to survive? Not very. If you don't have a hunger for food, how long are you going to survive? Not very. There are desires. God placed in us desires that are good. They keep us alive and they keep us working. The problem is that humans don't trust him that when he says you've had enough. Much like a rabbi, he's going to say Torah. I'm going to say all of Scripture is wisdom and law that provide the direction. Meat without spice is unpalatable, but spice without meat has no substance. Mastery of the beast isn't killing it. It's putting a bit in its mouth to plow a field for the kingdom. The word here for sin, shatat, means to miss the mark. Sin is failing to hit the target of who you were meant to be. When we think about that in those terms, it's about controlling one's desire for excess, for more. As humans, we have been set apart from the beasts because we know when to say enough. We talked a little bit, Declan brought up that there's some mirror images going on here. This is an absolute rerun of the garden. And you can tell by the way God acts. First of all, he asks Adam, where are you? He asks Cain, where is Abel, your brother? In Genesis 3:16, God tells the woman, your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. God tells Cain, sin's desire is for you, but you must rule over it. The ground is cursed because Adam's curse is the ground is cursed because of him. He will eat of it through painful toil. The ground still gives, but it's hard. Cain's curse is that the ground will no longer give. When Adam and Eve are exiled, God places a cherubim at the east of the garden to guard the way. Cain, after his murder, goes out from the presence of the Lord and dwells in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Whenever you see east in the Bible, there are some exceptions, but most of the time when you see east, it's bad. And the biggest one, hold on one second. And the biggest one is the hiding. In the garden, Adam and Eve hide themselves from the face of God among the trees. And Cain laments, from your face I shall be hidden. For Adam, hiding was a choice made out of shame. For Cain, being hidden becomes a permanent state of being. The rabbi notes that the face, panim, in Hebrew is related to interior, panum. To be hidden from God's face is to lose the internal connection to the divine source of life. What I want you to notice here is that Cain was given a warning that Adam and Eve were not. Cain God told him, sin is crouching at your door. You are not handling your desires well. And if you don't get it under control, something bad's going to happen. Adam and Eve actually don't get that. They don't get that warning. They just say, don't. He says, don't do that. That's why Cain's curses are Adam and Eve's curses on steroids. Your father can still work the ground. You can't even work it anymore. They are barred from the garden, but you are barred from my presence. It's everything multiplied. As you can probably imagine, this is a chiasm. And the middle is actually the beast, or the sin is crouching at your door. That's the middle. That's the big point that God wants us to take from these stories, is that desire, sin, is crouching at your door. And if you don't get a handle on it, bad things happen. I really like this picture that AI made for me. I told it to make Cain look in a mirror and see the beast, and it chose the snake, which I thought was appropriate. But I can only imagine that Adam and Eve told Cain the story. I'm sure Cain knows the story of the serpent. And I'm sure he knows the danger of the beast. And unfortunately, I believe that when he looked in the mirror, he didn't see himself anymore, but he saw the beast. Let us not just see Cain as the bad guy, but a man struggling with the same inherited baggage as his parents. The tragedy of Genesis 4 is that Cain had the user manual, or the warning, that Adam didn't have, yet he still chose the path of the beast. Ivan, did you have something?
Yeah, so we don't know the main conversation.
Yeah.
So we don't know what caused him to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I'm understanding, you're saying that he was seeing Abel as an obstacle. But what if all of a sudden Abel was just being a mirror or a reminder of what God intends from him? And sometimes we could be blinded by our own desires, by our own, like, this is how I want God to react, and I don't understand why God is not reacting the way I want him to. That's why I gave him the goods. Like, I was the first one to give him.
Yeah.
He should have been happy.
Yeah.
You know, and we're like, well, dummy, he's telling you that you should have gone to it, and then you overreact. And I think that a lot of times, there's sometimes that happens in our life where somebody is giving us, like, telling you, duh, God is telling you clearly what this is, and you still don't want to listen, and then you pretty much, go off on them.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering, there's different things that maybe puts us into this crazy mode, and whatever you interpret to be the blank conversation might be causing that. But
And I think you're onto something with Abel kind of being a mirror, because remember, it's not just about jealousy and an obstacle. It comes from a place of deep insecurity, and being faced with that insecurity right there. Yeah, that might have been the thing that flipped Cain over the edge. I tend, there are some people that are going to say Cain always had the intention to kill Abel. Whenever he went out to the field alone, Cain intended to kill Abel. I think in the reason that the conversation is blank and the reason that we should fill that void is I don't think so. I don't think Cain went out into the field with the intention to kill. And I think that's kind of what God was getting at. Is the beast is crouching at your door. It's not in your house yet, but it's at your door. And whenever he goes out into the field, something happens that he lets it in. He lets in the beast. And something that is really interesting about this story, especially kind of attributing to our day and age, is that a lot of times whenever we look at people of the world, and even sometimes Christians, they see their desires as purely good. If I desire it, then that must mean it is good. And that must mean there should be no check on my desires. Unfortunately, what's the difference between man and beast again? I don't say this flippantly, and I don't mean it to be derogatory. And it almost should promote a sense of sympathy. That people without faith act like beasts, acting upon every desire that comes in their head. And not just acting upon them, but taking them to excess. I want money, and so I need to have all of it. I want sex, so I need to have all of it. I want power, so I need to have all of it. God says, do you trust me? At the end of this story, I think that's what God wanted to ask Cain the most. Do you trust me? Do you trust me that there's enough of my love to go around? Do you trust me that I'm going to take care of you without these bribes? Do you trust in me? Here we kind of have the descent of Cain. Cain brings a gift of entitlement, and it is rejected. God speaks of the beast crouching at the door. Cain stops speaking to God, and words fail him with Abel. The murderer's misdirected energy turned towards destruction, and he becomes a wanderer. The acquirer is exiled to a life of dispossession. He is cursed by not being able to even live out his name in the negative sense. Instead, he can't at all. Someone asked, what is the mark? What do you guys think? What is the mark of Cain? What's another famous mark in the Bible? Not the name, but like an actual mark. What's another famous mark?
Holy Spirit.
Mark?
Well, not much, but
Yeah. What's another, like a literal mark? What'd you just say? Mark of the beast?
Mhm.
What did Cain choose?
Evil.
Be a beast. I think in Revelation, John the Revelator is almost certainly talking and trying to bring the Jewish audience that he's talking to back to this story. The mark of the beast. What will be that sign? When people act like beasts. A Western person is going to ask, well, how did that look? Did he grow horns? Did he become hairy? What's going on here? An Eastern person is not going to ask that question. An Eastern person is going to ask, whoa. His mark was that he was a beast now. He's no better than the beast. And his generations of offspring live that out as well. So, that is the story of Cain and Abel. And as you'll probably see, it was a continuation of the story of Adam and Eve. It is all about, are you going to choose to be made in God's image, or are you going to choose to be a beast? Are you going to choose to trust the God of benevolence, or are you going to decide to trust yourself? My challenge to you is this. What beast do you have? And how can you direct it this week? How can you redirect it for God's purposes rather than your own? You must rule over it. The beast. Brings a whole new meaning to that stupid phrase, if you got that dog in him. Any questions, concerns, or comments about the story?
so what I was saying, like mark of the Holy Spirit, like some translations will say mark.
Mm-hmm.
He marked us.
Yeah.
So like in this case, it's like who are you choosing to be marked as?
Yeah.
Like, following God's path, or like you're saying, marked as a beast.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Anything else? Hard stuff.
How do you feel about the conspiracy theory that the mark of the beast is actually growing a lot of hair, and Cain walked the earth for all of time, so now he's Bigfoot?
Yeah.
There are people.
Broken Bow, Hochatown is the home of Sasquatch, so clearly that's where Cain ended up. He went yeah, that's where God is. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and close out in a prayer, and then the night is yours. Father, we love you, and we are once again so very thankful for the wisdom and knowledge and stories that you give us through your word. It is so wonderful to be able to study this with fellow disciples, to dig deep, and we ask that you bless our lives through our study tonight. We know that these are hard lessons to learn, and I know that we can all be better at trying to check our desires, to be more